Hello. So today we're going to be looking at my lesson outline. Um, and I chose to talk about mitosis. And actually, one of the reasons why I selected this topic was because there are so many vocabulary words, and I think that students can get easily confused. Some of the terms sound really similar, like anaphase, telophase, metaphase. Those all, sound relatively similar. And then there's like sister chromatid, chromosomes, chromatin. So just a lot of things to digest. And I think having a academic language plan that focuses on the five aspects that we've learned about would be really beneficial when learning about this topic. So I will just walk you guys through. Um, this would be for like a 10th grade biology class, just general biology. And I titled it Modeling Mitosis. So my standards are from the Next Generation Science website. The first is to use a model to illustrate the role of cellular division, mitosis, and differentiation in producing and maintaining complex organisms. So that's my content standard. And then my literacy standard from the Common Core is to determine the meaning of symbols, key terms, and other domain-specific words and phrases as they are used in specific scientific or technical context relevant to grades 9 to 10 texts and topics. So those standards matched up pretty well with my lesson. And my central focus is that students will learn how new body cells are created through the process of mitosis. So, moving on to the academic language section, I chose my language function. I chose two. I chose describe and then model. I think having the two, they strengthen each other. So if you're able to describe and model, you're just better off at understanding the material. And so the steps that I identified for describe are to identify stages of mitosis through reading handout. Number 2, students record each step in their own words onto a worksheet with the accompanying sketch. And then number 3, communicate verbally to their partner the steps of mitosis. So that's how the students will be describing the activity or describing the steps of mitosis. And then the steps to model would be 1, identify stages of mitosis through scanning images and text on handout. 2, manipulate pipe cleaners to mimic the process that chromosomes go through at each step of mitosis. And then 3, sketch each step on the worksheet with accompanying written description. And both of these operative verbs are sort of happening simultaneously. So they're identifying the stages and then they're modeling and describing it written and orally all at the same time. So it's just one kind of big process. Okay, so my language supports. So I chose to use a KWL chart. I think every time I've used these or I've seen them used, it's been a really good way to get responses out of students, because even if they don't know anything about the topic, you can always contribute something that you would like to know. So I think that's a good way of hearing student voice and getting them thinking about the topic. So first, before they start the activity, they're going to fill out the know section as a class, and then also the want to know section. And my during reading strategy, there's a couple. So at each step of mitosis, the partners are going to be describing and summarizing while modeling with the pipe cleaners. So that's just, using like summarizing and description and oral communication as kind of a during reading strategy. And then also they're going to create sketches, so drawing what they're reading while they're doing the activity. And then the post-reading strategy would be to fill out the learn section of the KWL chart, and that's also going to be as a class similar to how we started the activity. So vocabulary, like I mentioned before, the vocabulary for mitosis is a lot. So the way that I sort of set up my lesson was that in the lecture from Professor Gritter, she mentioned like don't use more than 5 to 7 vocabulary words of new words because it can overload the students' brains, I guess, which it totally makes sense. So I have the intention of teaching this after a lesson before where I sort of taught this list of vocab words. So chromosome, chromatin, centrosomes, sister chromatids, spindle fibers, nuclear envelope, daughter cell, diploid, cell cycle, mitosis. So before I actually do the mitosis lesson plan that I've written up here, the previous lesson plan would be going over these words. And I mean, there's more than 7, so this might even be more than 2 days of work. But basically, they have been exposed to these words. And then for this activity, they have new words, and those are basically each of the stages of mitosis. So interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis. So those are going to be the new words that they're unfamiliar with, and we're going to need to go over them several times. My discourse, so the students are going to be communicating with each other pretty much throughout the whole lesson with their partner, and then afterwards, I have a piece in my lesson where the students work with their whole table group, so probably groups of 4, and they draw the stage on the whiteboard, and then they stand up and present what happens at that stage. So that's another way of creating communication and discourse between the students. And then also when they contribute to the KWL chart, they're going to be talking in front of the class and telling each other their thoughts. And then lastly, we have the syntax. So my microsyntax would be the mnemonic device for the stages of mitosis, and this is actually something that I learned in high school, like IPMAT or IPMAT, just to remember the order in which the stages occur. And then you could also think of it like something with words like I picked my apples today. So I would include something like that so that the students would have an easy way to remember the order in which the steps happen. So I think that's really helpful. And then my macro syntax is just like the big picture of the lesson. So how do organisms produce new cells, and why is this important? So that's kind of the takeaway point that I want my students to have. And then I have a couple more minutes. I can just briefly go over the kind of order of my lesson. I won't read it all, but I'm going to start out with working with my learning targets, putting them up on a PowerPoint so that the students know exactly what they're doing and what they should be able to accomplish by the end of the lesson, and asking the students if they have any questions about the learning targets. Then we'll move on, and I'm going to play a short YouTube video just to introduce mitosis, like a fun little animated video. And that's when I would tell them the mnemonic device. And then after that, we would do the KWL chart. And we will have started that since I pre-taught the vocabulary in the last couple of lessons. Then the KWL chart will have already been started, so we can keep adding to that, which and just building on that, which I think is a good idea. I'll informally assess them, having them do a partner turn-in talk, and just get their ideas on why mitosis is an important process, and call out on a couple students to share their ideas. And then now this is kind of the main bulk of the activity. So students will work with their partner to model and describe. So this is when they're going to be doing the verb that is in my academic language section. So they have a handout that they're working through with their partner. And while they're basically reading about the stages, modeling them with pipe cleaners, then describing them to their partner, I'll be moving around the classroom, checking in with people if they have any questions. And then after we've finished the activity, then they'll do the groups of 4 with the whiteboard, like I mentioned. So each group would have a different phase assigned to them, and they'll draw the phase out on the whiteboard, and then elect one person to be the spokesman, and just stand and describe their step in order so that everyone gets a chance to contribute in front of the class. And then to finish it off, we would go back to the KWL chart, and I would ask them to add anything they'd like to the learned section on the chart, and then finish off with the learning targets back on the PowerPoint and get a final display of student voice. So basically ask them how comfortable they're feeling about the learning targets, with a show of fingers, like 1 finger is I don't understand these, and 5 fingers is I feel very confident. So yep, that is what I have, and I hope you guys thought it was interesting. So I will see you next week.